to another episode of Sci-Fi Frontier. I'm Dominic, and I'm here again with
Wally.
And so we're going to be talking about the 1998 film Lost in Space. So the 1998 film Lost in Space, which was released April 3rd of that year, had an opening weekend of 20 million, gross 69 million domestically, and 136 million worldwide on a budget of 80 million. Has 5.1 stars out of 10 on IMDb, and has a 28% with critics and a 24% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So the movie was written by Akiva Goldsman, and it was directed by Stephen Hopkins. Now, Stephen Hopkins he's directed a few movies I've seen, so I did a bit of research. 3 of the movies he's directed that I've seen is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, Predator 2, and The Ghost in the Darkness. And so this movie stars William Hurt as Professor John Robinson, Gary Oldman as Dr. Zachary Smith, Mimi Rogers as Dr. Maureen Robinson, and Matt LeBlanc as Major Don West, Heather Graham as Dr. Judy Robinson, and Lacey Chabert as Penny Robinson, and Jack Johnson as Will Robinson, and Jared Harris as the older Will Robinson. So, what did you think of this movie overall? Now, this movie is kind of a guilty pleasure for you.
It is. I do enjoy watching this movie. I mean, I don't watch it as religiously as some of my other sci-fi movies, i.e. Star Trek's, Star Wars movies, the older ones, just so we're clear about that. But, I mean, I wasn't a viewer of the 1965 black and white series when it was on TV, but my first real experience with Lost in Space, I mean, I knew what it was, so when I went to theaters and I saw this movie, I kind of enjoyed it. So I mean, it was a little cheesy in spots, but I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own guilty little pleasure movies, right? For me, this one didn't really bother me that much. I understand why it only got 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, or 5.1 out of 10s on the IMDb's. I get that. I mean, there's some real cheesy aspects to it, but because of what I know of the original Lost in Space, I can accept it for what it was. And yeah, would I have done some things differently? Oh yeah, I definitely would have done some things differently. But it's, for me, it's just fun to watch. I thought it was a nice update to an older series, and they're not trying to like turn it into a continuation or anything from what the original show was. So they just self-contained the movie, and if you're just looking for a little sci-fi buzz to get a little smirk on your face or whatever, it's good for me.
So now, to be clear, now you did see this in theaters when it came out?
I did, so as a matter of fact. I actually paid the full admission to go and see this movie. So.
Okay, now I remember the movie coming out. I remember seeing trailers for the movie, but I never got around to seeing it in the theaters. And the next time I can remember, but I always remember seeing it in video stores, but I never watched it until just maybe a few years ago, when actually you loaned me the movie.
That's
and
right.
I finally got to watch it. And then we watched it again, so this would have been my second viewing. We watched it today. So I enjoyed it a little bit more on the second viewing.
Yes, I remember you telling me how much you didn't like it the first time around.
So I grew a little bit more appreciation for it. Kind of like the design of the film kind of reminds me a little bit of Fifth Element. Almost as if they could be in the same universe. When you've seen some of the city scenes, kind of had that Fifth Element look with the flying cars and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah,
I would probably agree with that. I mean, I wasn't much for the Fifth Element movie. I mean, I've watched it. I've seen it a couple of times. I don't overly enjoy that movie, but I like the Lost in Space movie, but it's not one of those things that I have to watch once a week, once a month, that kind of thing, right? I'll put this in maybe once every year and a half, maybe. Just something just to watch. For me, Fifth Element I didn't like the premise of it too much. Same thing with Stargate movie. I didn't like the premise of it. I know what it was about, but yeah, I don't know, for what I appreciate of it at the beginning sequence, when they're talking about the fact that their Earth is be uninhabitable after the next 2 decades.
Yeah.
You know, I can appreciate for what kind of technologies they had and spacefaring, and obviously, you know, if they get to a point in that kind of a world, yeah, they're going to definitely start doing more spacefaring conquests, such as, you know, well, the Hypergate is just that was their niche market thing, but space travel and, you know, colonizing other planets. So for me, that worked.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting concept where they were going to go to the other planet and build a second gate and then connect the two, so then the humans from Earth could instantaneously travel to the new planet.
Now my only gripe with that was sending just a family of 5.
Yeah, just sending
10
a family
years
of 5.
to build a Stargate or a jump gate like that.
Now, was it just the family, or were they only scouting the planet, or were they going to build the gate?
Well, no, I believe they said right in there that John Robinson was going to oversee the construction of a second Hypergate. So they didn't mention anything about people having been there already, so I'm thinking what the plan was for them to get down there, get a colonizing colony, I guess, or colonize that part of the galaxy for, you know, crews to come down there and build off of that. So it seems a little extreme again for me for 5 of them to do that, but obviously the you know, based on the way that the events folded out, I mean, if that's what they were planning, you know, seeing them get lost in space that early almost seems like that's why they only sent a family of 5, because they figured something like this was going to happen. So
my knowledge of the original Lost in Space is like very limited.
Mine too.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've seen a full episode. I might have just seen clips here and there.
I can definitely tell you I've never seen a full episode. I mean, I've seen episodes, or, you know, recap TV episodes of, you know, some of the greatest sci-fis, and Lost in Space, the 65 series Lost in Space pops up in there as it's an iconic you know.
Well, and everyone knows that famous line from the TV show Danger, Will Robinson. Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows
like, I've never
that.
seen the show, and I've always known that line.
Yeah,
somehow it's always been in there.
And I mean, you see that in modern day stuff. You know, you see Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory, you know, jumping up out of bed. Danger, danger. Well, that's even though he doesn't go the Will Robinson aspect of it, that's what he's referring to. That's what that is. So again, I've never seen it either, and would I want to watch it? Well, it's only a 3-year. I think it was only a 3-year total run for episodes, and maybe a little over 100 episodes kind of thing. But you know, it was definitely a different time. So
yeah, and there's a few cameos from the original.
Yes, there was.
So one colonel guy, I'm pretty sure, was from the original.
The colonel was or the general there was a original cast member.
And then the teacher, hologram
the
teacher.
The hologram teacher was also another cast member from the original series. Yeah. Who they were, I don't know off the top of my head. I could probably look them up as we're talking. I think the holographic doctor, I think she was the mom in the original one. That's possible.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not totally familiar.
Yeah, no. And granted, it's now a 31-year-old movie from the time we're doing this, from when that movie originally came out. So,
well, the actor that I'm most familiar with the original, from the original Lost in Space,
that's only 21 years, not 31 years. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, 21
years.
The only actor that I'm familiar with from the original Lost in Space is Bill Mumy, who played the original. He was Will Robinson, and he was the boy actor in the original one.
Yep.
So he's done quite a bit of TV and stuff over the years. He's even been in some episodes of Deep Space Nine and Star Trek.
Cameo episodes. Yeah, absolutely, he has been. He's never gotten away from acting. He's just he just kind of periodically shows up in random sci-fi genre television, or maybe even movies.
And so he's kind of famous now in modern times for like two sci-fi shows, because he's famous for Lost in Space, but he was a regular cast member on Babylon 5 as well. He was one of the Minbari aliens.
So he's kind of got you on that one, because I know you want me to watch Babylon 5, but I've tried, and I can't get my head around that stuff.
So he's kind of got 2 iconic shows under his belt. Now, the one thing in the movie I thought was kind of interesting is, what did you think the whole time travel twist in this one?
it was an interesting thing. I mean, it's not really totally related to what happened in the original series that I'm aware of. I think it's just a little something that's, as our understanding of the way science fiction's evolved over the years through TV and movies, that time travel and time paradoxes and ships being able to travel back and forth through times is just kind of implied. So was it executed particularly well? There's some spots where I think they could have probably explained it a little bit better. Like, to me, it's not just Lost in Space. It should be Lost in Space and Time.
Yeah, they were kind of lost in space and time.
Yeah, so I mean, and by the time they got off that planet after it was destroyed, did they get back to their original time period?
Because they just kind of, you could kind of interpret that one of two ways. Either they did or they went on another adventure. Because I guess maybe they left it hanging a little bit, kind of leave an open window for a sequel maybe, if this movie had done well.
Well, I mean, it did do well. It did make more money than it was than it cost them to make. Yeah. So I mean, it did get it, but maybe the fan response and the critic responses maybe kiboshed it a little bit. Yeah. Could they do a Lost in Space 2 with the same actors now? Maybe. It's been, if they try and keep the same time frame basis, 21 years since that movie, they should probably be by Alpha Prime by now. So I mean, if they wanted to see the story of the Robinson family and find out did they ever get to where they needed to go, it would have been kind of nice, but
yeah,
well, it's also another one of those things that you can probably just say, they went on another adventure and then they just.
Well, that's a good segue to kind of talk about the casting in this movie. Because, so what did you think of the casting?
I enjoy the casting. I think it was a very well casted movie. Gary Oldman as Dr. Smith was. Yeah,
he did a good job as Dr. Smith.
He was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, he was that conniving, sniveling,
Weasley,
backhandedness kind of guy, and he just, he did everything just to try and circumvent the Robinsons. Yeah, and he did it. Like he went
totally out for himself.
Yeah, totally out for himself. Now, you get that far out in space, is that really going to do you any good at that point? Because what's he want to do? Take over the ship? Well, okay, knock yourself out. You'll be the only one running the ship before long, and then you're going to need the Robinsons. So, I mean, is it really doing you any good? Probably not, but I mean, based on what the original Dr. Smith was, I think Gary Oldman.
Yeah, I think he kind of hit it pretty good.
Really on the head.
Yeah. So he was kind of flamboyant and over the top.
Yes. Yeah. I enjoyed him. He's one of those guys that just you just have fun watching him. The pompousness of him, and the way he interacts with them. I'm a doctor. And,
he's so underhanded and easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I thought the cast was pretty good. William Hurt, I like him.
I like him too.
Yeah,
he's a very.
I'm a fan of him.
Yeah, he's a very sophisticated actor. I think he fit the role.
Yeah, he does a good job of playing a scientist.
And a removed from his family kind of father figure, because he was working so much on trying to protect his family that he got away from interacting with his children and everything like that. And that's understandable. I mean, I could see that, but when you've got a 10-year-old son and I guess Penny would have been about 14 or 15 maybe, roughly kind of thing. They're those are two kids that don't want to leave their family or don't want to leave their friends on the planet for just staying with their immediate family in space for 10 years before anybody else comes around, right? Like they don't grow up and develop an identity like that. But I understand the reasoning for sending the whole family, because he didn't want his family separated.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I noticed about this movie. It's got a really strong family-oriented theme, like the theme of making time for your family and having putting your family first kind of thing, and how important family is not. So it's a pretty strong theme in the movie.
Yeah, I definitely get that. So
in the film. And no, yeah, William Hurt, I've seen him in quite a few movies. I've watched a lot of his movies, and well, and he's pretty famous now for being in the Marvel films as General Ross, Thunderbolt Ross.
Thunderbolt Ross, yeah. You betcha. He's fantastic as Thunderbolt Ross.
He is. He looks like Thunderbolt Ross.
He does look like
from the comics.
Yeah, he does absolutely. Like, I'm almost to the point where I want to see him actually turn into the Red Hulk. That's something I'd like to see him turned into. But
I'd like to see that too.
I mean, would we see it? Probably not. But that's another story, another podcast we can do later. So.
And Matt LeBlanc did a pretty good job in this as like kind of like that cocky pilot.
Yep.
Almost like a Han Solo type character.
Yeah, that's the exact feeling I would get as the Han Solo type. The not so much the smuggler side of it, but the grizzled war combat fighter, and he takes no malice for going right to doing what he's been trained to do, take out his enemies. So was he a good protector for the Robinsons? Yeah, I think so, but definitely there was some clashing there, and I mean,
power struggle between him and
John, absolutely.
John Robinson,
and I didn't mind it. I really thought it was
he was and well, of course everyone else, he was famous, pretty big name during the time of this movie because of the TV show Friends. Was like a huge show in the 90s. So
Joey Tribbiani, and I think maybe that could have hurt this movie a little bit, but I think
he kind of had a little bit of that swagger with like lady swagger that he carried over from the Friends TV show, because he had that raging boner for the blonde the whole movie, and he was
the Heather Graham Judy character there. So absolutely. I mean, the only two consenting adults in the universe, and he's not wrong, but that's he's slowly won her over. So I mean, but we didn't see any more continuation of it, and do you really need to? I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, I'd still like to see what would have happened to the Robinsons, and would have West and Judy got together. Who knows? That's it's probably very likely, just based on the way they were. They were kind of two polar opposites, which is what another thing that John and Maureen had. John saying, maybe I shouldn't let Dr. Smith live, and she going, well, how can you say that if we can't be civil, or how do you realize you take the opposite side of whatever I say? Going, well, that's kind of the point of the whole thing, right? So.
Yeah, so, some of the other things I liked about the movie was I liked some of the designs of some of the ships. I actually liked the design of that one they found when they got to that planet, the one that was inside that first time bubble. Yeah, I actually thought that was a pretty interesting design. Yeah,
I figured that was probably a 20 years after they got lost kind of ship design. Was it really marked as a Global Space Force ship? I don't know. I don't really have anything to base it off of, but thing, it seemed like a colony ship to me.
But they never explained what happened to the crew of that ship.
No,
that's just left a complete mystery. You don't know if they all died or what happened to them.
I mean,
or were they eaten by those spiders?
Well, that's kind of what I think they're trying to imply with the spiders, being that where did they have to go, and then there was that alien ship that just happened to be off to its.
That's right. Yeah, there was an alien ship that was never touched on again after in the film.
It was just there. Now was that they did a biopsy of the spider and said it lived in deep space. So why does it need a ship? So did it just happen to latch themselves onto that, multiply from there, and then they're kind of like reminiscent of the Borg based on.
Yeah,
they needed a host body to infect, to continue on their lineage and things like that. And that's exactly what the future Smith turned into as a giant.
Yeah, he turned into one of those things. So it's kind of interesting. They never really touched on that alien vessel ever again. They kind of saw it, but it never came back again in the movie. It was kind of like a dropped story thread.
Yeah, so I mean, should they have? Yeah, I think they should have done something.
Yeah, because they kind of set it up, but then it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, so I mean that didn't go anywhere. But again, it's one of those things that you kind of forgot about later, and then what did it matter, because you got all the spiders on the Proteus there, and then you go run.
Yeah.
They all go running around doing that, and you know spiders are eating. They're wounded, and
Yeah.
you know they're just there's thousands of them chasing them down to the airlock, and then you know I would assume that's probably the implication is that they probably ate the crew of the Proteus.
Yeah, I would assume, they probably ate the crew. But yeah, they don't really clarify if any of those guys survived or they were all killed off on a rescue ship.
Yeah.
It's kind of a... Yeah, that one was a little bit I wasn't really clear on, and then the alien ship was never brought up again. And now the other thing that I liked about the film is I think the best thing about the movie for me is probably Dr. Smith. He's the highlight of the movie.
He is the highlight.
He's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
And I really like the look of when he was transformed, his future self was transformed, that weird spider thing. I thought that was like really creepy looking, especially when he was all hooded up and stuff. And
yeah, like he was definitely, you definitely knew that he wasn't, well, you could tell by the facial features that he had just under the hood that it was him, but you knew that something had happened to him. And, you know, when he came into contact with his older self, you knew that he was quite a bit bigger than what he was as his human form. So now that's another odd thing that they never really touched on is, you know, they knew that Smith was scratched by that spider, you know, the past one, and they still have him on the ship. So
yeah, they still have him on the ship.
So what are they going to do with him? Like he can't keep that quiet forever.
No, well, I guess
they
would
know about it now. So
yeah, well, I guess now assuming they make it to the colony through the hyperspace jump, they'd just be arrested.
Oh, I would absolutely
for sure,
believe
at the
that.
Other side. And the other thing too is it was kind of interesting with the whole time travel. You had the alternate timeline where the family stayed on that planet and most of them died, and it was just Dr. Smith and
Future Will.
The Future Will. And I kind of got the impression that Dr. Smith was kind of pretending to be a father figure to Will all those years, so Will could invent the time travel thing, so he could go and invade Earth.
It's like he believed him over John, who always dismissed his claims of time travel as not not possible, but improbable. And Dr. Smith believed he could do it, and lo and behold, he did.
I kind of wondered, were they both kind of using each other? Like, was Will kind of using Dr. Smith? Because you kind of got the impression that kind of the future Will knew he was not being, because he kept asking again, how did the girls die and stuff.
Yep.
So he kind of knew, like, you know, you're using me, but I'm using you at the same time. I kind of got that impression between the two. But now one thing about that, though, with the future Will, Robinson, I don't know why they didn't just bring back Bill Mumy, because he would have been roughly around the same age as the actor that played Future Will anyway. And that would have been a nice throwback to the original series.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting throwback. But I mean, I think, I don't know. Let's say it was only a 20-year jump in that bubble. Mm-hmm. So if he's 10 years old there, he's only about 30 now. Is that really how old the original Will Robinson is now? No, I don't think so. I think he's quite a bit older than that. I'd have to look him up for his age, but I'm pretty sure he's got to be in his 50s. So it's
like it's not 20 years ago. So
yeah, so it's not a lot. It's not a lot to say that some people can pull off a younger look, and the way they can do makeups and things like that nowadays. But yeah, that would have been a nice. But maybe he was approached about it and he said no. Maybe,
because I've seen him in other shows, like he was on Deep Space Nine and he was on Babylon 5, all around the same time as this movie came out. And he didn't look much older than the actor that they had originally got to play the future Will.
You're probably right, but again...
In the first place. And that actor kind of looked familiar, the one that did play the future Will, and I've seen him on a show recently, that sci-fi series, The Expanse. He was in that. Not a huge role in it, but he did have a role in that one. But he looks quite a bit older.
I haven't seen any of The Expanse, but I mean, you might not be. Yeah. You might not. Might be onto something.
And now the one thing I didn't like about this movie, and I'll bring this, it's that weird alien they find.
Yeah. Now. Yeah. Could they have redesigned that alien? Absolutely. But it is a nod to the 65 series. Mm-hmm. Around episode 103 or something like that, they find an ape-like alien.
Alien, yeah.
Now, again, I did show you the picture of that, and it did kind of semi-resemble an ape-like creature, but I think what they were trying to do was trying to turn it into a bit more of an alien than, say, just like a chimpanzee style life form.
Yeah, but the design, I thought
it
was
was
horrendous.
Yeah,
horrendously designed.
Yeah, it looked like something out of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the CGI was bad on it.
it was like it was very cartoony, and I think that's why they only showcased it for as little bits as they did.
I think it would have been better if they had to redesign it and almost make it a puppet or something, but have to totally redesign it somehow.
Well, so again, the puppet aspect of it, there was a deleted scene. If anybody owns the movie, you can go into the deleted scenes, and there's a section of deleted scenes when they go into that bubble when they're on the planet, and they do find that blarp alien, and it's all grown up, and it looks just a great big yellow. It's definitely like a Muppet style, but it was so chunky it didn't really move. It maybe took a few steps, as I recall. I mean, we didn't watch it, but it is in there, but it was a deleted scene because I think in the deleted scene they pulled it through the time period and put it on the Jupiter 2 for the current time frame that they were focusing on.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem like it was reasonable. But that was another gripe that I had, is they didn't showcase that as they went through that bubble. Like, there was no mention of that creature.
Yeah.
It wasn't laid to rest beside Penny, or Penny and Blarp, or nothing like that. And there's no sign of it anywhere. So did the spiders killed the girl? So did they eat Blarp at the time? Again, there was no indication that they did anything with it.
Yeah.
But if they had left that scene in there, then what happened to it? Did it just go and run away and sit in a cave until it waited for everybody to, like, it knew it was going to come? So I think that's why it was cut. But
yeah, and it kind of had no impact on the story when they found that alien. You
No,
could have cut that right out of the movie altogether, and it wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah, it really would have. I mean, again, it's a nod to the original, and that's all it was. And I think that's what they were just trying to set it apart with. So. And
the other thing I liked about the movie is how the newer robot design gets destroyed, and then he rebuilds it. But when he rebuilds it, it's the robot from the actual old show. It looks So I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was also a nice touch too. And I mean, I like that kind of a robot premise. It's I mean, it does definitely look a little bit different than the original, and that's fine, but the idea of it is what's still there, and I was okay with that. So
So for me, I really like the beginning of the movie and then the end of the movie, but I find the middle part seems to kind of drag a bit when they're.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
know. What do you think?
You're right. It does kind of drag along. Like, it just, the whole thing is all the actions right at the beginning. The robot destroys the navigations. They're heading towards the sun. They jump through the sun, and then, okay, where are we? And now all of a sudden we're gonna start seeing just these random time bubbles for just for the sake of them happening. So I mean, it's obviously the way that they're trying to portray this is these events were going to happen. So this is what it's following the events that was laid out in time for it. So that's. Yeah, it did drag a little bit.
Yeah, that's where now on second viewing, that's where I kind of noticed that it kind of drags for me is the middle part, like
just before they get crash landed onto the.
Yeah, just before that kind of section kind of drags, and then then you have the spider sequence when they're on the ship, and then it kind of drags again until they get to the end where the final conflict there with Doc Smith.
Yeah, like it's all just trying to keep the crashed ship on the planet and stay warm. And good night, Judy. Good night, Penny. Good night. Good night. Good night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it did drag a little bit. But again, is it just because they were working up to these more grandiose finishes? Yeah, probably, but it would have been nicer to see something a little bit more, maybe non-nodding off portions, so to speak. So
Yeah, the other thing too is because I really like the look of Earth, like the future city and stuff in this movie at the beginning. I thought was pretty well done, and the flying cars and all that kind of had that.
Well, and again, like the technologies needed to advance because their Earth was dying, so they were needing to focus on that spacefaring technologies. You know, the launch portals for Jupiter 1, and like I thought that was a really cool kind of concept. That large tower where they build the ship around that, and the enclosed dome, and then they launch it off of there, and then everything explodes away, and then the Jupiter 2, you know, it's similar to like what a shuttle would do, right?
Yeah.
You launch a shuttle off a pad in Earth, and then it gets up into, of course, up into space, and then it starts to jettison its booster rockets, and then it's just the shuttle. So I mean, it's the same kind of premise, but yeah, it's an evolved, years later kind of a thing. So and I enjoyed that. I mean, the technology with the way that they were, you know, the ships were flying around when they're doing the hypergate construction and everything, and the first sequence, the action sequence, the dogfight in space, the dogfights and everything. Like that's to me that worked for me. I liked the feel
that was
of
a pretty good
sequence. I liked the sound, the way that the communications were going between the frigate and the base there, or whatever they were talking about, and the you know, little blaster ships and fighters, and
and then you kind of had the subplot of those terrorists in there, and they actually hired Dr. Smith to go in and sabotage it, but they stab him in the back, and then he gets electrocuted by his own thing there and gets stuck on the ship. So he has to work with them. And I wonder if that's something, story threads they could have picked up and expanded upon if they had done a sequel.
Yeah, I think they absolutely could have. I mean, I would have loved to have seen a 2 and a 3. I think it would have been fun to see that kind of a go. But you know, it's what's done is done, and now we've got that the Netflix Lost in Space. And we'll touch on that in a future episode.
Because because there's a few parallels between this movie, like in themes and characters and stuff that kind of line up with the new Netflix series.
Yeah, they do. And the fact of the matter is that I'm enjoying the Netflix series. The season 1 is all that's out at this point, but I've enjoyed that series immensely. But the nice thing is that they're just taking aspects from the original and the 90s movie, and then they're just creating their own thing. So and they're just kind of making it more updatable to, does it make sense to just send a family by themselves? And now there's a whole bunch of people that are going with those ones. So but again, we'll cover that in future podcasts.
And the Jupiter 2 is kind of an interesting design for this one too. They kind of made it a little bit more of a wedge shape as opposed to a saucer from the original.
Yeah, now the original looked very similar to what the Jupiter 1 launch configuration was.
It did,
And again, that was another nod to
the original. Yeah.
So again, I was very, very impressed with that. But you know, the Jupiter 2 could also be construed as you know, this is our version of it now. Like they did call the original a Jupiter 2 as well, but this is the way that our Jupiter 2 is gonna transition. So
and that was a very common design for 50s and 60s sci-fi, where all the ships were either a rocket or a saucer.
And that was it. But the whole premise of those were back in the days, you know, flying saucers, right?
Until Star Trek came along and kind of pushed the envelope on it.
Yeah, and now they did leave. Again, Star Trek did keep a lot of the saucer configurations into their ships, but they did build onto them and around them. So, and that's why I think those ones worked well. So I think it was a pretty good, interesting design for like a 90s spacecraft. Kind of definitely has that 90s feel, and they kind of made it a little bit more wedge shape, so it's not totally a saucer. And overall, I thought it was, you know, it's not a bad film, like to give it a once over. If you're a big sci-fi fan. Yeah, if you're a big sci-fi fan, and I mean, you're never having seen the original Lost in Space, and you know, that's exactly the kind of thing I was. But it's a guilty pleasure, like I said, and I agree. There are people out there that are going to hate it for a lot of the reasons that we've touched on. But you know, I don't. It just worked for me. I just liked the way that it was portrayed.
and it's definitely one of those movies if you kind of feel nostalgic for like 90s sci-fi movies that you could throw in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are other 90s sci-fis out there, but this is a good one for just, you know, if it's just you're just bored one day and you've seen everything else to death and you just want something different. This will definitely either fill the void for you, or just you'll hate it enough that you'll just throw the disc in the garbage. I mean,
and it is a pretty family-oriented movie, so I mean, you could watch it with your kids even.
Yep,
for sure.
It's not. I mean, the spiders are a little scary, but I mean, I wouldn't go for too young viewers.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, 10, 13-year-olds, I think they could handle this. No problem with that. You know, it's not that scary. They're not ripping limbs off and, you know, doing anything drastic like that. Like, it's not a horror, science fiction horror movie or anything like that. So just something they had to deal with in space.
So I guess we'll pretty much wrap it up there, I guess. Any final thoughts on it?
Yeah, again, there's really not too much more to say. I mean, if anybody's listening and they have seen it or are going to see it because we've given this a review, would love to hear from you. I know, again, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, well, yeah, you said this was a guilty pleasure and I watched this and it was horrible, but again, that was for me.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. So I mean, if you don't like it, I absolutely want to hear from you. I want to hear what you guys have to say and why it was so bad for you. Like, that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
So
and as for me, final thoughts, it was I enjoyed it more the second viewing, and I totally missed out on this movie back when it was new in theaters and stuff. But if you are a fan of Lost in Space, give it a watch it. If you're a fan of like 90s sci-fi and you kind of get a hankering for that, you know, you want to check out some older sci-fi movies from the 90s if you grew up in that time period or whatever, definitely check the movie out. And to give it a once over for a sci-fi fan, I would totally recommend it.
Yeah, and it's not one that you're gonna, you know, want to watch 3 or 4 times a week if you've never seen it before. It's definitely not going to do that. But
it's definitely worthwhile to give it a once.
Yeah, once or twice a year, maybe, if you're really hung up on it. Again, I only watch it maybe once every year and a half, kind of thing. So I mean, it's not gonna make me or break me if I never see it again. But it's fun to watch. Yeah. So.
All right, so we'll end it there, and so let us know what you think in the comments section, and we will see you at the next one. Thank you to all of my subscribers, and thank you for watching this video. And if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for notification when new videos are uploaded.